First, thank you very much for everybody who took great efforts to organize this and put it together for our distinguished panelists from around the world who have taken the time at various times of their respective days on a Sunday to join us for this event. Just a quick line that I say at every event, ideas are the lifeblood of every movement. The century-old Dravidian movement requires a continuous replenishment. It has had an extraordinary run of success. It's very rare that a movement lasts over 100 years and has achieved what it has in terms of inclusive growth, social justice, and relatively unique progress in the Indian context. And yet, all the more reason that we need to keep rejuvenating it with better ideas and more debate and more vigorous kind of discussions. And so I commend the executive coordinators and indeed all the supporters of the DPF for taking this to new heights. I'm constantly amazed at the quality and the range of the talent that we get and the debate that occurs at these events. With that, let me get to the topic at hand. I apologize after many days of continuous assembly session. I'm in Madurai in my constituency for the first time in probably close to a month. So I've been a bit tied up in events all day. But since the topic is quite close to my heart, I don't really need any preparation or any kind of planning for this. I think it is now beyond doubt that strong, independent, well-functioning institutions are not just the bedrock of any democracy, but also the basis for growth of any type, and certainly of equitable growth, of harmonious societies, and of sustainable development, if you will. In that sense, while most advanced economies constantly fight this battle about the checks and balances built into most constitutions getting a bit askew or tilting towards one pillar or the other of the democratic system or the model of the republic, developing countries face a unique or a more complicated situation, because in many of our countries, the progress had not yet reached a level where people had benefited economically, socially, in their quality of lives, and where we could afford to have backsliding a bit, as we sometimes see in places like the US, at least in the last couple of years. So we started having our problems much earlier in the developmental cycle, and the problems are more, therefore, retarding and hurtful to people like us. As a relatively newcomer to politics in terms of only the second term elected, I don't want to profess too much kind of specialization or depth of experience. But I will say that I have been rather unpleasantly surprised upon coming to office relative to what I felt outside office. As bad as I thought the system was, I thought it was better than I have found it to be upon entry into the office. And part of the system is moral decay. Part of it is the regular rent-seeking kind of corruption that we talk about. But much more of it is inherently bad systems design and system capabilities. I've just spoken recently at an Indian Institute of Management seminar as an invited speaker, and I made a few points. I said, even a small or medium scale business in today's competitive global environment would have business infrastructure, data systems, HR systems, ERP systems, continuity of understanding, continuity of memory, institutional memory, and what can I say, interconnectivity between the different parts of the organization that would be the envy of the government of Tamil Nadu today. I am shocked profoundly to say that neither do we have the infrastructure, the systems, nor do we have the mindset, nor do we have any plan in place that has been, let's say, slow in execution. We are just about starting to get the basic systems like an integrated finance system or a HR system. At least billions and billions of dollars and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of transactions are still happening with no transparency through that system. The inherent checks and balances in any organization in terms of audits and reviews and disciplinary actions and consequences and things like that are all but defunct. And of course, the blame lies squarely at the feet of the political leadership. You get the system that the political leaders either take the effort to create or allow to happen with their benign neglect or their collusion. So, in that sense, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but as the minister for not just finance but for the human resources management of the state, until recently called the Department of Personnel and Administrative Reforms, I can honestly say that the reforms are 20 or 30 years too late. I'm not casting aspersions on individuals. I'm just saying basic infrastructure, data systems, dashboards, performance trackers, event managers, litigation risk management, record keeping, continuity, enough to have institutional memory or institutional knowledge, and transparency. These things are completely lacking. And it has been a bit shocking to me. I'll give you 3 or 4 data points that in less than 4 months of sitting in office, I've had to process almost 1,000 paper files. The files come so thick and fast that it's almost humanly impossible to process them with any degree of diligence. And they range from matters involving one individual or a few $1,000s to matters involving $1 billion and consequences for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or in the case of our citizens, of millions of our citizens. And there's no distinction between either the speed or the robustness of the process that these files are processed in. I will also say that if I wanted to, sitting at my desk, it is almost impossible to tap up any information on my computer relating to any aspect of the financial management of the state of Tamil Nadu. Neither of the debt, nor of the interest, nor of the liquidity, nor of the inflows, nor of the outflows, nor of the bank balances, nothing. So, it is appalling to me as a former senior official in a large global bank that such systems still continue to exist and function. And it just highlights the need for fundamental structural reform. There's, of course, a big human component to this. I think the lack of accountability, the lack of record keeping, the lack of institutional memory inherently encourages bad behavior or bad practices. And it is almost impossible to find people with the the moral fortitude or the inherent conscience that they will stay resolute excuse me, despite the lack of any need to do so. Right? If you have a system that has no inbuilt checks and balances and no audit and no trail and no memory and no consequences, it is the rare exception that still chooses to stay on what they perceive to be the narrow path, assuming they can even define the narrow path that clearly because the training systems are that bad. So I would say these are all probably to some extent common across other developing countries. I hope nowhere near the extent that we see in Tamil Nadu or perhaps in India. I don't want to take up too much time on the negative. Let me say on a positive note, that is why people elect us to come to office, precisely because we think and they think that we can make a difference and that we can bring structural reform. Our chief minister, our leader of the party, has been very clear that he is ready for radical reform. He's not ready just to do gradual transformation because he understands that radical reform is the need of the hour. We are blessed to have eminent global advisors, including Dr. Narayan, who is a panelist here today. Many of us have experience in other entities, in other walks of life that we can bring to bear on this situation. So, there is, of course, always hope, and there is always a kind of, what can I say, relentless pursuit of improvement. And that's why we are in public service. We are elected by the people to make things better, to make their lives better. And this is only a means to an end. Our end goal is to improve the lives of people, improving the institutions and the administrative process and the administrative personnel and their performance is only the means to that end. And we must never lose sight of that, and we never do. So let me probably stop my comments here because I've spoken for about 15 minutes. Thank you all once again for setting this up, for agreeing to be on the panel, for participating, for dialing in. Thank you again.